wait for Andromeda to come over the horizon. It's all over then.
Dude, what are you doing?
What does it look like I'm doing? I'm galaxy hunting.
No, that's not even the right kind of scope.
Well, according to the news, these things can shoot an entire galaxy, right?
No, we're not doing that kind of shooting, and not from the backyard. Look, just pack that thing up. In the morning, we'll pack up the right kind of scope and we'll go to a proper dark sky location and do some real galaxy hunting. And if you're lucky, I'll even show you how to process it. Let's get out of here.
Okay, smart guy. Whatever you say. We'll do it your way.
Oh boy. Ryan here with Dark Rangers Inc. And today we're going to do something that I hope you guys really enjoy. We're going to combine one of our processing videos that we've done in the past featuring the one-shot color guide that's been highly requested with the Andromeda Galaxy. We'll even jump into how to do the HA-RGB combination. And then we're going to add in the travel portion, and we've typically done travel videos in the past, so I can show you actually how we acquired the data. The reason I really like to do those videos is I really want to inspire you guys to get out and go to a dark sky yourself. And I think sometimes what happens is we run into analysis paralysis. We maybe think we need to over plan. And I actually decided that morning to go on the trip. We did run into some issues because it was the first time that I've ever been there, but we were able to problem solve, because when you go to a place you've never been, there's no guarantee that there's going to be a great spot to set up and get a clear view of the sky. And of course we have Mother Nature and other things to contend with, but the data we got was actually phenomenal. And so with astrophotography, we know it's truly all's well that ends well. So hope you guys enjoy, and we'll meet back up for the processing portion after we go through how we acquired the data. So stay tuned. And it's that time of the month we all know and love, the week of the new moon. And typically that means on this channel that we do a dark sky trip. And that's exactly what we're doing today. We're actually going to hit up a new location, Yellowstone Lake State Park. Not the Yellowstone you're thinking of, but the one closer to me. It's kind of right on the edge of a Bortle 2-3 zone, so it's pretty good. And last night was actually the new moon, but it's still going to not be up for the entire time that we're shooting. And so I've never been to this location, and we're going old school, so no more cushy log cabin like 2 months ago. And then last month, the Canadian wildfire smoke ruined the entire week. So we're back at it, and I actually haven't been to this one before, so I didn't even reserve a campsite because I want to make sure that I get one where the trees aren't potentially blocking the direction I'm going to shoot. So when I get there, I'll kind of take my phone out with my compass and get an idea of which direction won't be inhibited by any of the tree cover, because just looking at photos of the campsite, it did look like there were a good amount of trees, but the campgrounds are kind of all facing in different directions. So when I get there, we'll find a good one that works for the target tonight, which I haven't actually picked out yet, and then we'll get set up and we'll check back in when we get there. So see you guys soon. Stopped at a little place, got a quick burger real quick, and final connection to internet services. There's definitely no cell phone out here. That's usually a good sign though, so you're never really in dark skies if you have cell phone service for the most part. So a lot of wildflowers kind of blooming right now. You can see, I really can't with the GoPro, but a lot of the reason I like coming to these places is just to get away from city or just more of an urban area. I mean, it's just like super nice. All right, so we just got to the lake. It's actually pretty massive. And then there's kind of like a big wooded bluff that we're gonna go into the campground. Hopefully the trees aren't too bad so that we're not able to set up and get a good spot. Just rolling the dice like I usually do on finding a good dark sky location. Before I actually go in and pay, I'm gonna go find proper location. That way I know which one to pass for. And then once we do that, we'll get everything set up in terms of the scope. And I have a couple ideas for targets that I want to go for the evening, and then we'll choose our location according to that. I might ask the camp host, these guys right here, this is a pro move. I'm actually going to do that now. When you don't know where to find the best site for what you're trying to do, you just go ahead and you find yourself the camp host. So we're gonna talk to them and then figure out what to do from there. Be right back. All right, so the campsite host wasn't at the motorhome, so he has a cell phone number. I went ahead and texted him, gave him a call. So we'll see what he says, but in the meantime, I'm just making sure I kind of scour every possible campsite, looking for an opening. But there is a ton of
area around the lake itself. And so I just sent him a message via text asking like, hey, I'll be up with the scope all night. Can you just let me hang out there? I won't bother anybody and I won't be near anybody. So that would be really sweet if he's cool and just lets it slide. But you never know. That's why, you know, if it just went smoothly, you have to ask yourself, would it really be an adventure? It's something to ponder. But as you can see, it's starting to get a little dark. Clouds are rolling out, so that's good. And we got to get this situation solved here pretty quick. All right, so the camp host actually reached back out and we found a spot right here that's not far from the amphitheater. And luckily, his dad is the president of the astronomy club, so he's gonna let me use it. It's not like completely coverage free in terms of trees, but it's pretty wide open. And then with my campsite being the second closest one, this one's technically closer, but beggars can't be choosers. So it's actually right by some washrooms, which isn't bad. What I do is I go ahead and use this app here, the AM5 app. So the ASI mount app, you can get it for free. You don't have to own the mount. Basically, here's the clearing. And that's kind of north, so you can see like Andromeda's right there, and it moves in real time. So Andromeda's there. We got Deneb and North America Nebula up in that direction right now. So this should be pretty good. And he said I can just go ahead and set up on the cement, and we've got a pretty good clearing. So this actually should work out. Then I can actually get some sleep. He said I could even use the little amphitheater down there. There's like a little wood stage, but then obviously the trees right above it would completely kill that. So yeah, wanted to see if coming down here in the grass would be any better. Kind of keep it out of people's eye a little bit more, but I think it gives me more tree trouble. So we'll go ahead and just set it up at the top, but this kind of allows me to actually have a campsite that I can use, still set up and get some good data. All right, we got all set up. Now I can actually relax a little bit now that I know that I have a good spot to shoot. My tent's good to go, and I was just thinking it's so funny how something like this always happens. Like, I don't go to the same spot often. Like, even if I go to the same national park or wherever I'm going, I typically will go even to a different area of the national park because I always like to just check out new places. And so like there's always some dilemma that I have. So if you're worried about going, like not having all the details, just go for it. Like, it'll always work itself out. Obviously, like talking to the guy, the camp host, or even calling ahead is always a good tip. But either way, like, you'll always figure out a way. If you're really willing to do whatever, like including, you know, maybe sleeping in your car while it's outside, you'll be good to go. But I've actually never had to do that. Something always works itself out. So definitely don't overthink it. I know that's easier said than done in this hobby, but we'll pick it back up. It's a little bit darker. All right, so after all the trouble getting a campsite, I get here and I go to check my battery and it turns up to 100%, and then it's actually dead. So I don't know who designed that to show that it's got all that battery, but you know, the drama continues. Luckily, I do have a second battery. I always bring two. That's why I preach redundancy. So we've got it ready to start polar aligning, and it's crazy because it's seeing like 3,000 stars. So I'm gonna get it polar aligned and then start imaging, and then I've got the camera set up here. Well, it's about 10:30. Everything's going really smooth. The shooting stars are really crazy. I know the meteor shower peaked a couple days ago, but you can really clearly see the Milky Way with your naked eye, and the shooting stars are literally like every 10 to 20 seconds. I'm trying not to even look at my phone because I don't want to ruin my night vision. The images of B150 are coming in great. You can actually see the whole seahorse in each image. And I'm gonna give it another hour or so and then switch to Andromeda and then just hammer that until the morning. So I should get about 2.5 hours on the Seahorse and then probably 3.5, 4 on Andromeda. So I'll have to probably come back for the Seahorse to be really happy with it, but Andromeda should be really good with 4 hours of data in really good conditions like this. So decided to switch to 5-minute exposures. We're getting between 0.4 and 0.5 guide, and you can see the whole Seahorse right in the middle. There's a little baby galaxy right at the bottom corner that I'm cutting off, and I didn't see it until I was like 20 minutes in, so I'm just gonna let it ride. It's definitely performing pretty well tonight. Autofocus every 2 hours, and yeah, the results look good so far. All right, it's midnight. First one for Andromeda's coming in. That's just like a 2-second test. So it's loading the first, I'm gonna do 3-minute subs with Andromeda. I was doing 5 with Bernard 150, AKA the Seahorse. So let's see how it looks here. This will be the first one. Boom. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with that. You can start to see the dust lanes and then the core isn't blown out. I think if we go any longer, we're gonna lose the core. So, all right, well, even though I have 83% battery, it said it turned off because it died. So sorry it cut off when I was talking about Andromeda, but hopefully get 4 or 5 good hours of that. Got a couple good hours on Bernard. I'm gonna hit the hay, we're in the tent, and then I'll catch up with you guys in the morning, and hopefully we got good results and the scope is still there. So good night, and we'll see you tomorrow. All right, it's about 5:15, and even though it's still dark, I'm gonna go ahead and head home. We're after astronomical twilight. I woke up because nature called and saw that the battery had died on my scope. I checked it via Wi-Fi like at 3:45, and it still had like 30% battery, so I'm surprised it ran out, but twilight was actually at 4:21, so I'm pretty sure it made it past that. So we should have gotten about 4.5 good hours of Andromeda when it was up over 45% the entire time, and then the peak time for Bernard 150 for about 2 hours. So anytime you get 6.5 hours of good data under Bortle 2 skies in the summer, that is a success. And actually, just visually, this was my best trip in terms of the sky conditions. I'm definitely going to come back here, and what initially seemed like not a great situation, like not ideal, because it didn't seem like there was a spot to set up the scope anywhere near a campsite, ended up working out. And now I know which campsite to go to that's actually right next to the amphitheater. We're gonna go ahead and head home. I can't wait to see the data. Andromeda, the 3-minute exposures looked amazing. It was like just enough to not actually blow out the core. Like, we were right on the border. I was thinking about taking it back to 2 minutes, but I went with 3. And then the Seahorse looked great. I haven't done a true dark nebula all by itself. Look forward to showing you guys the results, and I'll do that a little bit after I get home and probably get a couple more hours of sleep, hopefully. So thanks for coming along with me, and we'll show those next. I don't know if it'll show up, but just after I filmed that last little footage, I was driving in this awesome field that's kind of recessed down, has this layer of fog over the top, and it looks insane. It looks like you'd walk right into a cloud. I don't think the GoPro's gonna pick it up. I'll try with my camera a couple times, but it just looks really cool. These are the little moments that you get when you do trips like this, and it's just, you know, stuff that you don't get back home. So just wanted to share it with you guys. All right, welcome back. That was a lot of fun. I'm super excited that I have a great place that I found only a couple hours from home that has phenomenal skies, and now I know the exact campsite to book and where to set up, so that's great. What we're gonna do now is we'll go ahead and jump into the one-shot color guide itself. And again, just a reminder, there's an email in the description. If you send a request to that, I will get this out to you at no charge to you. Just for being a subscriber to this page, I really appreciate it. So just send me a note and we'll get this out to you. The first step we're gonna do, and again, I'm assuming that you've done the stacking in either WBPP or Deep Sky Stacker, however you do it. I don't want to lock anybody into that, but get us to a stacked image. And the first thing we'll do is dynamic background extraction. I'm going to skip crop for now, and I'll tell you why in a second. And what you want to do is go to Process, All Process, Dynamic Background Extraction, and then click on the image just to get that kind of cross. That means the image is selected and it's a dynamic target.
Under tolerance here on the right-hand side, we'll just go through the settings real quick. I do 2.0, shadow relaxation at 6.0, and then default sample radius, you can do anywhere from 50 to 150. I tend to go smaller when the stars are more dense, just because I'm trying to avoid big stars, and of course any nebulosity when I'm actually picking the spots for it to sample to find out what to remove. Under target image correction, we do subtraction, and then you can either check discard background or replace target image. What that'll do is it'll just throw out what it took away, and then if you do replace target image, it'll throw out the original version. I like to keep it just in case I didn't like the correction that it does. That way I can maybe rerun it a different way. And then what I'm doing is I'm just selecting areas of the photo that are background that we want to remove, like it's bad stuff. You want to avoid the galaxy, the nebula, any big stars. What we're trying to do is show it what to remove. So anything you want to keep, you really want to avoid and kind of keep safe. Once you've done that, just go ahead and hit the check mark. And then it will give you this right here with the green all completely gone. The next thing we're gonna do is something that's different for me is Image Solver. When I went to crop after doing the update, it now warns me that I might lose the asymmetric solution, and I don't wanna do that. So I do Image Solver and color correction next. And what you do is if you ran asymmetric solution in the stack, all this data will already be here. If you haven't, just hit the search, and in this case, you'd choose M31. And then under date, time, all that, you just put the information on when you shoot. Now, with Drizzle, I did run Drizzle on this, so the pixel size was actually affected because of the way Drizzle works. So I had to change the pixel size from 3.7 down to 1.8, essentially cutting it in half. And then you just go ahead and hit OK, and it solves the image for you and basically plate solves it and lets WBPP know exactly where you are. So now we do that so that we can do SPCC, Spectrophotometric Color Calibration. Yes, nailed it. All right, SPCC. I'm not married to this in general, but for color, I do like it. For monochrome, I'm a little bit more open-minded on which process I like to use, but with RGB stars, this will really correct it the best way and give you the most accurate stars possible. So the white reference, obviously, it is an average spiral galaxy. It's a M31, so it's just leave that standard. Under the QE curve, I did change it to the IMX 571 because that is the sensor I have. I ran no filter, but everything I've heard, the 2600 does have a UV IR cut filter built into the window. So I just did RGB with the UV IR cut filter. And then I did use a preview and selected a area of the background, kind of using the same methodology as dynamic background extraction, avoiding any nebula or anything like that, just a blank area of the background as the region of interest. Check that and then just hit the square. You do want to make sure that your Gaia catalogs are obviously downloaded and installed from the Pixinsight website, or this will not work, of course. And then this is what I got. So basically I got rid of that ugly kind of greenish color in the nebula and gave us a nice clean bluish gray hue, which is much more pleasant. Now I'm going to do the dynamic crop because there's only one night of shooting, about 4 hours of data. There really weren't any stacking artifacts for the most part. So I just bump it in a few pixels after highlighting the whole image, and then either drag the triangle or hit the check mark. Sometimes it does help to zoom in to the edges just to see exactly. I want to keep as much of the data as I can, but I also want to make sure I do get rid of all those artifacts. All right, now we're going to jump into Blur Exterminator. If you haven't purchased this yet, I'm sure you've heard a ton about it. It is probably one of the most essential plugins you can get. I do have a link. It does help the channel, so if you guys can use it, I'd really appreciate it. If not, that's fine too. What this is going to do is sharpen the stars. Now, in the past, I used to go more like 20 to 25, but I do use the Blanshan star reduction script later on, so I just hit it with 10 now because I find that that script's a little bit more customizable, but I do want to sharpen the stars a bit. And then with the non-stellar adjustment, this one I do play around with. I tend to kind of be in the 40 to 70 range for most of the time, but I'm not set in stone on this. And just a quick note on that, if you're not seeing a big change, the more signal to noise ratio you have and the more focal length you have, meaning the more zoomed in you are, the more of a change you'll see. If it's super wide field and you don't have a ton of data, you're not going to see much. Super zoomed in with a bunch of data, you'll see more of a correction. So just bear that in mind. If you don't see a lot, you just need to get more data. Next up, we have NoiseXterminator. And for this one, I just like to zoom in My biggest key here is just using as little as possible. So we don't want to destroy any of the good detail. We just want to smooth it out. So I'm actually using a little bit less than I did in the past. I used to be more around 70 or 80, kind of closer to stock settings. I ran 45, and with 4 hours of data, granted it was really dark skies, it looked really good. And here's a zoomed in view so you can see the noise is essentially gone. You can always go back after it's stretched and use a little bit more. I've heard people doing it both ways. I like to do it now just so I'm not stretching that noise and doing anything like that. All right, now into GHS. And I know you guys are saying, oh, the stars are still there. With Andromeda, the bigger issue is really the core. The core is going to blow out in this situation before the stars. So being that I was worried about the core more than the stars blowing out, I just left them in and it worked out great, saved me a step. And for this one, I do have an entire video on this. I have the link right here. So if you've never used this program, I do recommend go ahead and watching that before diving it in. This is a little bit more labor intensive and there's a little bit of skill and art involved to this. So with step one, I do have my actual settings for each step on the right, and I will go, it does continue on to the next page. For step one, as you can see, we're just getting it visible. Step two, we add a little bit more contrast and really start to bring out the dust lanes in the nebula. But as you can see, after just 2 stretches, it's already looking pretty decent. Then I go color by color. So under the mode, under color options, I do blue and then red and green. I did blue first because that's the primary color in the nebula, or excuse me, in the galaxy. So I wanted to bring that out. Then the red kind of brought out some of the details in the dust lanes because that's primarily what that color ends up being. And then green kind of balanced it. And now you might be thinking, well, why would I add green? Because there really isn't green in space. You have to understand that all 3 colors play off of each other. So when you pull one away, it enhances the other 2. When you enhance the other 2, it might pull one back. So you do have to balance out the green if you strengthen the blue and the red. Otherwise, your image is going to look a little funky. So here are the actual settings that I used. I might have hit it with maybe 1 or 2 steps after this, but this is the image after these 5 little stretches. So now we'll jump into the HA-RGB combination. Big thanks to Bill Blanshan. I have actually tried this many times. I've tried different ways. The NA-RGB method does a fantastic job on transferring the nebula, but it transfers everything else too. So if there's noise or anything else in the image, it all comes with it. With Bill Blanshan, and I'm sure you can do mask, but with Bill Blanshan, it really just transfers the red from the nebula, gives you that nice pinkish red hue that I really like. And for it, you need to have your HA data go through all the processes that we just did leading up to this. So whether you have monochrome data like I did, or whether you have like a dual narrowband filter like the L Ultimate or the ALPT, something like that, just go through the whole steps. And then the summary will give you what you need to get this to run. I use the advanced version for Galaxy specifically. It seems to work out a lot better. And I did leave the link for Bill's video where he goes through step by step how to use it. He also gives you the ability to download it for free so that you can bring the processing icon into Pixinsight. But it's actually fairly easy. You need to have a starless and a star version of your HA image, and then obviously your RGB image. I did the mode to 1, which is galaxy mode, and then the star mode to 0 because I'm using the RGB stars. I changed brightness and HA strength to 0.85 just to give it a little bit more subtle look. And then you just drag and drop onto the color, and I got this right here. Now, it does affect the core as well because the HA is really strong. You can see these top 2 are the HA data. It's very strong in the core, so it does carry over, and I can tell you how to deal with that a little bit later on. We're going to do another script by Bill Blanshan, and this is that star reduction script that I mentioned earlier. So what you want to do is you want to make a clone of the RGB image and then make that starless. So you'll run Star Exterminator or StarNet Plus, however you do it. And then the target view is going to be the one that has stars. The starless view will be your starless view. The initiate small star protection, you actually have to click that first before you check the box. What that's going to do is it's going to protect the small stars, so you're only shrinking the bigger stars. So it kind of evens out the star size, essentially. If the small stars stay the same, but the big and medium size get smaller, kind of evens them out. And if you're worried about some of the smaller stars maybe affecting some of the details, this can help with that. I did not check it in this case. This show preview up here in the top left will actually show you what it's going to look like. You can also take your mouse and left click and drag and select any section of the image and it will zoom in, double click to zoom back out. There are 4 methods. I'm not going to go through all 4. You can very quickly and easily try them. I 99% of the time use the star method. I just find it works best for me. Mode, I almost always go soft. There's also moderate and strong. And then the number of iterations also controls the strength. So if you go to like mode hard, or strong, excuse me, and do number of iterations like 2 or 3, it's almost going to look like a starless image. All the way down to 1 with soft, it's just a nice subtle reduction of the stars. And then you can create a new one. I still had the one from my last image in there, and then go ahead and hit the checkbox and it will automatically give you a new image. All right, so next we're going to go into curves transformation and really try to bring out some of the beauty of this image. And really what I focus on is the H for hue, which is going to change how the color itself looks. So like for red, for example, you can make it a little bit more orange or a little bit more pink, and you can do that with all the different colors. Saturation obviously will increase or decrease the amount of the color in the image. And then just like you did in GHS, you can go into the R, G, and B tabs individually and stretch those curves. What I like to do is usually add a little bit more in the highlights and midtones and then do an S curve to take it out of the dark areas. That way the background doesn't get kind of contaminated with color, because black obviously has no color in it. So that's typically what I do. I'll do some S curves with there. And then after each adjustment, just hit the square. I tend to kind of do it one thing at a time. I've noticed that if I use a bunch of different curves all at once and one of them goes wrong, I don't want to lose all the other changes. So I usually just do one thing at a time. And then one thing I wanted to go over that I didn't do with this image for myself, but I think is something good for you to do as you're in the process of finalizing the last few steps of your image, is HDR multi-scale transform. This is really good for galaxies if you have blown out the core. In my case, I was lucky that I didn't. As you can see, it kind of has that nice little glow. I did 3-minute exposures and I was kind of right on the edge, but didn't hit 1.0 or clip the whites at all. So with this, what it does is, see how it kind of flattens it out. With the number of layers over here, the higher the number, the more subtle I notice that the change is. And then you can apply this lightness mask and it will focus the change specifically to the brightest areas. You can also turn that off and play around with some of the different settings and see what it gives you. But because this does do a nice job sometimes at saving a core for a galaxy, I did want to go over it. I know a lot of folks use it on a regular basis, so experiment a little bit with that. I would say to probably use sparingly, because we've all seen those that look a little overdone, and a lot of times that's in this HDR multi-scale. Final adjustments before going into Photoshop. A lot of you guys like the kind of natural look, and so you might actually stop here. I did this actually with the non-HA RGB version, just the RGB, so this is the true like full natural. And as you can see, this is what you'd be left with, which I think a lot of people would be fairly happy with. I did try to have all of them on one window here, so you can see all the different changes I made in the curves adjustments. But if you didn't want to take it into Photoshop, this would be a great final image, I think, for a lot of you. For me, I did go into Photoshop after this, and that would be a whole video in and of itself. So I'm not going to go into step by step, but this was my final version. I do have a Photoshop video, and I included the link here that will show you how to do some of the things that I did to achieve this image. But I know a lot of you guys are either in this camp where you like it kind of totally natural looking, some like it like this, or even beyond. I tend to kind of be somewhere in the middle. I am pretty happy with how this came out. I do like having that creamy yellow color in the core, and then kind of with the HA nebula, and then kind of the blue and purple hues in the outside as well. So for 4 hours of data, I'm pretty happy with how this came out. I certainly could do better if I had more, but you know, I was pretty happy with the overall result of basically one night of imaging and about an hour and a half of total edit time. This is what I was able to come up with. So let me know in the comments, what do you think? Did it turn out okay? Which one do you like more? I'm sure you'll be split. And, you know, as always, guys, I really hope that this did help you, and I hope you got a lot out of it. That's why we do the channel. I really appreciate all your support. The comments are really what drove me to get here. Even if you see a comment already in there, the more I see, the more likely I am to then prioritize that as a future topic for a video. There are only so many things we can talk about. I'm not to the point where companies are sending me gear to review on a regular basis yet. Hopefully one day the channel will be there, because I do love doing gear reviews. But in the meantime, the way I can add value is by you guys letting me know what you're looking for in a video, and then I can try to provide that for you. If you do want to join our community, I do have a Patreon link in here. RC-Astro, I am in the affiliate program with them. They are awesome. I've been using them for a long time before I ever started doing a YouTube channel. I've just always used them, so they were my first choice to reach out to. The links in here or the description do help the channel. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the RC-Astro Links. So guys, again, please reach out, send me an email, request the guide. And in the meantime, guys, get out there. Go visit a dark sky spot. If you haven't for the first time, do it now. And as always, clear skies.